This is 7 News.
Tonight, a high-speed police chase with a difference through paddocks and fences south of Perth.
Vehicle is on the railway line.
A Perth grandmother's remarkable escape from a runaway car.
The terrible toll of Perth's glassing attacks.
And why Ross Lyon could be caught short in his Dockers debut.
From the studios of 7 Perth, Susannah Carr and Rick Ardon.
Good evening. A stolen four-wheel drive has been involved in a high-speed chase for more than 40 kilometres. As dramatic vision from the WA police helicopter shows, the driver smashed through up to 30 farm fences and drove over a railway line to try to get away.
A police chase with a difference, off-road.
Still northbound. He's just hit a ditch, guy.
That doesn't stop the driver, who was unlicensed.
He's going to approach Jenny Place. Jenny Place, if someone can get in there. Still going through property lines, VKI, still damaging fences.
Police started chasing the Land Cruiser near Boddington, 120 kilometres south of Perth. The four-wheel drive, stolen from the local fire captain, abandoned the road in Dwellingup. It raced through bushland, paddocks and smashed through 30 fences to get away.
With him now, and he's attempting to go through several more fence lines to get out onto the railway line. Vehicle is on the railway line.
The driver's downfall, a small creek bed.
Rolled over. 061, he's rolled.
The police video is out of focus, but you can see the driver makes a run for it.
And he's out of the vehicle and off running.
Not for long. He's arrested moments later, hiding behind a nearby bush.
All call signs, fantastic work, well done.
Tonight, a 28-year-old man is in police custody. David Cooper, 7 News.
A car with a 16-year-old girl behind the wheel has crashed into the home of a Perth grandmother. The 77-year-old is lucky she wasn't hit by the car. With half her home destroyed, she doesn't know if she can stay there. Emmy Kabansky reports.
That's the chair I was sitting in.
77-year-old Perth grandmother Eileen Partigliani looking around at what's left of her house. A car inside her living room, just centimetres from the couch she'd been sitting in half an hour earlier. It's been her home for the last 21 years.
The noise was absolutely colossal, and my dressing table fell onto my bed, and I thought that it had broken.
The Holden Commodore was packed with 4 teenagers. Behind the wheel, this 16-year-old girl, an unlicensed driver. Borrowing a friend's car, the girl had driven through a stop sign and hit another car. That's how she ended up in Eileen's one-bedroom house.
Well, I hope they think about it, what they've done. I really do, because they're messing with people's lives.
Eileen says Homes West have told her they hope to have everything fixed up in about a week's time. But Eileen says she's not so sure whether she can move back.
That's because Eileen says she's worried something like this will happen again.
That noise, I can't get it out of my head.
The 16-year-old girl will be charged by summons. Emmy Kabansky, 7 News.
8 people become the victims of glassing attacks in WA every month, according to figures just out. That comes as no surprise to one senior Perth plastic surgeon. He says the number of glassing patients he's treating has doubled.
Father of 2, Terry O'Brien, home from hospital 3 days after a glassing attack.
Still finding bits of glass everywhere.
Robbers broke into Terry's Warnbro home. Their weapon, a bottle.
I've lasting memories of what happened for the rest of my life every time I look in the mirror.
Terry's been told he'll be scarred for life. So too will glassing victim Courtney O'Keefe. 4 years after her attack, she still has a piece of glass lodged in her forehead.
Every single day when I put my makeup on and I run my hand over it and you can still feel it, it brings it all back.
The 23-year-old was hit 15 times in the head with a bottle outside Burswood Casino. She's had 3 major surgeries, $9,000 of dental work. The scars are fading, the fear is not.
Are you still scared?
Petrified every time I leave the house.
In the past year, there have been 96 glassings in WA, 8 per month. A figure one Perth plastic surgeon says is on the rise.
Over the last 5 to 10 years, this sort of injury has probably doubled.
Glassing injuries worse than a knife to the face, says Mark Duncan-Smith.
Glass in someone's face is more damaging because the cuts are sometimes circular, can create flaps that create much worse scars.
It changed everything.
Sally Bowery, 7 News.
Some breaking news now. A body has been pulled from the Swan River. Samantha Jolly is in Bassendean. And Sam, what can you tell us?
Well, Sue, all we know at this stage is that police discovered the man's body about an hour ago here in the Swan River in Bassendean. Now, a search was sparked at about 2 o'clock when an emergency beacon was activated. Water police then discovered the man's body, and there are unconfirmed reports that he may have had the EPIRB attached to his leg. Water police are still in the river recovering the man's body, and the car park behind me here has also been taped off. There is a four-wheel drive parked there. But at this stage, the death is still a mystery and police are unable to confirm exactly what's happened. Rick.
Thanks, Sam. Police are about to spend their second night searching for a great-grandfather who's been missing for 24 hours. Norman Mills was last seen this time yesterday at his nursing home in Yanchep. The 87-year-old, who suffers mild dementia, used a motorised wheelchair.
He doesn't usually go off and not come back. He's just right out of character.
70 people, including police and SES volunteers, have spent the day searching for the missing man.
That smoke haze which blanketed Perth yesterday is still hanging around, but it has eased a little. Natalia Cooper, when can we expect skies to clear?
Well, so the Weather Bureau says the haze could be with us until Saturday. The weather is doing nothing to help. Southwesterly winds keep blowing the smoke towards the city. On Sunday, a strong easterly wind will push what's left of the haze out to sea. That fire at Northcliffe that's causing the hazy conditions is now contained, but it's not under control. Rick.
Thanks, Natalia. Changes to Australia's private health insurance rebate have passed in the lower house of federal parliament. Julia Gillard has claimed the passing of the bill as a victory, but the Prime Minister's win is a loss for 2.4 million Australians who will now face higher premiums.
Walking away from leadership tensions for the moment,
right.
Julia Gillard strides to a much-needed win in Parliament.
The result of the division is Aye 71, Noes 70.
The defection of Speaker Peter Slipper from the Liberals allows Labor to pass its private health insurance reforms.
A tick to the interests of fairness and a tick to the interests of sustainability.
The 30% rebate on premiums will be phased out from July 1 for singles earning $83,000 a year and above and couples on above $166,000, effectively increasing premiums for singles by up to $500 and families up to $1,000.
This is an historic win for ordinary working Australians.
Tony Abbott says he'd overturn it.
We will restore the rebate as soon as we can.
Julia Gillard's supporters say this is the sort of leadership they want to see more of. Victory on a policy previously rejected by the Parliament twice. While visiting students today rejected one politician's behaviour during Ms Gillard's speech on closing the gap in Aboriginal health.
The school students asked me the question of why a member was playing solitaire on their iPad.
The Speaker said it wasn't good form, but
I don't think that playing solitaire is probably beyond the standing orders.
The fun and games can continue. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Premier Colin Barnett has criticised Scarborough Beach, calling it awful, drab and tired. He says it's taken too long for a proposed redevelopment, but stopped short of guaranteeing extra government money to get it done.
Scarborough Beach from the air this morning. A stretch of sand the local council claims has 1.5 million visitors a year. This is what the Premier thinks of it.
It's pretty drab, it's pretty run down.
This is what it could look like with a $53 million upgrade designed by Stirling Council. A new boardwalk, kids' water park, better roads. The plans took 2 years to draw up.
We don't need to do any more planning, we just need to get funding and get it going.
The council was knocked back for federal funding. Mayor David Boothman says it's now up to the state. The Premier says any cash could mean the state government would take over the redevelopment.
That's the sort of project that the state would join with the City of Stirling in trying to do a redevelopment.
The City of Stirling says it spent more than $10 million of its own money down here already, building the amphitheatre behind me 5 years ago. But there's been little development since then. A private redevelopment of Observation City has started. 2 8-storey apartment buildings will go up either side of the hotel, and today 7 News took a look inside a newly refurbished hotel room. All 334 should be done by the end of the year. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
The Premier has weighed into the debate over an Aboriginal camp or tent embassy in the city, from where reporter David Cooper joins us live. David, Colin Barnett says the protesters will have to pack up and leave.
That's right, Rick. Good evening. Protesters are preparing to spend their third night here on Harrison Island, which is on the Swan River near the Causeway. Now, they're angry over the Barnett government's $1 billion offer to settle native title claims over Perth and the southwest.
Everyone's turning a bit of a blind eye at the moment. Those particular group of Aboriginal people want to make their point. I don't have any objection to them making their point, but it will not be allowed to continue as a long-term site with people camping out and sleeping there overnight.
Now, the City of Perth has previously said people here have until tomorrow to pack up and leave, but protesters on Harrison Island have told me they're staying. Sue.
Thanks, David. A new hardware superstore, partly owned by Woolworths, is set to take on Bunnings in WA. The first Masters home improvement store opened in Baldivis today, but as Alexis Donkin reports, unlike Bunnings, it won't be opening on Sundays.
We've had the milk war, we've had the vegetable war. Now it's hardware. It's the latest battle involving the 2 supermarket giants, Coles and Woolworths. In WA, it's starting here, the corner of Baldivis and Safety Bay Roads.
Look at the speed he's cutting through that.
Part owned by Woolworths, it's the first Masters home improvement store in Perth. 3 more to be opened by August in Forestdale, Bibra Lake and Ellenbrook. New competition for Bunnings, which, like Coles, is owned by Wesfarmers. There are differences. Masters sells fridges, washing machines and dishwashers.
Our customers on the research have really said they would welcome this type of a format where they can buy everything from white goods to timber, everything from riding lawnmowers all the way down to little nuts, bolts and screws.
Sunday is a big trading day for Bunnings, giving them one up on Masters. They won't be able to open Sundays because they sell white goods.
We believe that for Western Australians it's a real benefit to get 7-day trading.
The government says the competition is all good news for consumers.
It will keep the others involved in the game on their toes as well, and that means providing better services for West Australians.
Alexis Donkin, 7 News.
And still to come on 7 News tonight, the family of a stricken police officer still hoping for government help.
Plus, our digger's emotional return to Singapore. 70 years after the fortress city fell to the Japanese.
And Miranda Kerr takes us on a tour of what's cool for winter.
In 7's Money Watch, the stock market closed slightly higher today after a late rally. The ASX 200 finished 10 points up after a lacklustre lead from Wall Street. While financials pulled the market into positive territory, softer commodity prices saw a sell-off in miners and materials. Commonwealth Bank added 27 cents, Westpac put on 6 cents, BHP was down 7 cents, Rio Tinto off 41 cents and Fortescue was off recent gains, down 8 cents. $1 Australian is buying $1.07 US.
A Perth police officer almost killed by a mosquito-borne disease is still waiting to find out if he'll get vital government funding for specialist medical treatment overseas. 29-year-old Ryan Marin was struck down with Murray Valley encephalitis doing relief work in the Kimberley last April. Constable Marin has applied for funding to travel to the US for treatment, but he's waiting for an answer from the state government.
Every day is hard, and every day that goes by just prolongs this agony.
We are doing everything reasonable to try and make sure his health care is as good as it can be.
The family needs $500,000 for the US treatment.
St George has outdone the big 4 banks, lifting its variable home loan rate by 0.12%. And the future of interest rate changes is looking more uncertain. The Commonwealth's chief has declared the days of commercial banks following the Reserve are over.
Just 2 days after upping interest rates, record profits. $3.6 billion for just 6 months, a 7% jump, but a whopping 19% from the same period last year. From new CEO Ian Narev.
Our profitability is
appropriate for an institution of this size at this time.
His customers aren't so sure.
I don't understand it, how they explain it, how they get away with it.
The interest rates go up, their mortgage rates go up, and it's just not fair.
Combank customer and teacher Laura Bavona is 7 months pregnant and angry.
I was livid at the time, to be honest. We've been thinking about moving to a non-bank institution, and I think that's the way we're going to head.
But the Commonwealth disputes claims of community anger, saying its research shows 80% of customers give them a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
That's not our polling, that's independent.
So you dispute that there's anger out there?
That's
You're saying it's not as bad as we are painting?
That's independent Roy Morgan numbers, that's number one.
That on a day the St George also up rates to 7.42%. The new Commonwealth boss also confirmed that the old days of banks faithfully following the Reserve's interest rate moves up and down each month were well and truly finished.
Those days are over?
Yep.
Chris Reason, 7 News.
Today marks 70 years since the fall of Singapore, regarded as one of the Allies' worst defeats of World War II. And it was the beginning of 3 terrifying years for 15,000 Australian prisoners of war who surrendered to the Japanese. Today, some of those veterans were back in Singapore to remember.
Dawn in Kranji War Cemetery for a ceremony remembering loss on so many levels. Seated in the front row, a handful of remarkable Australian veterans. Serenaded with an old favourite.
Very touching. I just couldn't help myself being very emotional.
If you walk around the cemetery and read the names and the ages, you wonder what it was for.
Despite the Japanese being outgunned and outmanned, Singapore was lost before the battle had even begun. The reason? Smug Allied commanders believed that this place was impregnable.
Churchill orders his generals to defend Singapore to the death.
But the might of the Japanese in 1942 was too much. British commanders surrendered. Australia's top general had already fled. 15,000 of his soldiers were now prisoners of war. 70 years on, Japan is now our second biggest trading partner.
I drive a Toyota Carr. I have Japanese electronic equipment.
Given the way this city looks today, it's hard to imagine the horrifying scene so long ago. In Singapore, Adrian Brown, 7 News.
Australian supermodel Miranda Kerr is about to hit the runway as David Jones unveils its autumn-winter collection. She'll be opening the Sydney show in a sharp tuxedo. The theme is New York Supper Club, and guests will be eating dinner as they watch.
You're going to see ladylike fashion, a real return to feminine, sophisticated dressing.
The event will be streamed live on Facebook.
Basil's here with sport now. It's no to a night AFL Grand Final, Baz.
Yet again, Rick. Yes, Andrew Demetrio tells us why, and it's time to get serious at Fremantle. 4 days to go. Ross Lyon gets his Dockers ready for their NAB Cup opener. And while his Aussie teammates clown around, Brad Haddon plays a straight bat.
Hello, Natalia Cooper with you. That smoke haze is hanging around. It has eased off a little today, but is expected to stay with us until the weekend. Currently, it's 24.6, relative humidity 70%. We had a top today of just under 32 degrees and the temperature dipped to 17.9 at 5:45 this morning. Looking around the metro area, it was scorching hot out at Northam, 39, cooler by the coast, Lancelin and Fremantle with tops of 28. Around WA, in the southern half, that smoke haze affected much of the west coast again today. Apart from that, it was mainly fine, very hot through the Wheatbelt and Great Southern. Tomorrow, the risk of a thunderstorm in Esperance and in Kalgoorlie, mostly sunny, and 31 for Geraldton and Bunbury, still hot in the Pilbara, 40 in Karratha. Let's have a look at the satellite, and winds will continue to push the smoke haze over Perth tomorrow and on Friday. A strong easterly should finally push it out over the sea over the weekend. A mid-level disturbance and a trough will trigger some isolated storms in central parts of the state tomorrow. Interstate tomorrow, mostly sunny in Sydney for a change, a top of 27. A shower or two expected in Melbourne and a hot 40 degrees in Alice Springs. Boating information, south to southeast winds 18 to 23 knots, easing to 13 to 18 for part of the morning. Winds will tend south-southwest 18 to 23 in the afternoon. Seas to 2 metres and swell to 1.5. off. So hazy again tomorrow, particularly in the morning, a top of 30 after a low of 20. Then possible haze on Friday, 30 again. The smoke should clear over the weekend, 31 on Saturday, 35 on Sunday, and a very hot 39 degrees on Monday. And before I go, happy 100th birthday to Anthony Pizzoga of Rossmoyne, Stanley and Audrey Morn from Bunbury are celebrating 60 years of marriage. Rick and Sue.
Thanks, Natalia. That's 7 News this Wednesday. Thanks for your company.
Now here's Monica with Today Tonight.
Nobody knows.